All right, let's tackle a word that can make even the most seasoned professional a little nervous. Audit. But here's the thing. It really doesn't have to be this painful, dreaded event. In this explainer, we're going to open up the Auditor's Playbook to make your next audit smoother, more productive, and, dare I say it, maybe even painless. So let's jump right in.
Be honest, did you just feel a little shiver run down your spine? If you did, you are definitely not alone. For so many people, an audit feels like an interrogation, right? A hunt for every single tiny mistake. It's just this high-stress, confrontational thing we have to endure. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? This is such a great question from Richard F. Chambers over at the Institute of Internal Auditors. He's making the point that this whole auditor as the bad guy view it's outdated. In reality, a modern audit is supposed to protect an organization and help it get better. And that just takes one simple shift in how we think about it, moving from seeing them as an adversary to seeing them as an ally. Okay, so to make that shift, we first need to understand the whole process. So here's our game plan. We're going to walk through 4 key areas. First, we'll look at the key players involved. Second, the really strict ethical code that auditors have to live by. Third, we'll break down the anatomy of the audit itself, step by step. And finally, we'll cover the common pitfalls you'll definitely want to avoid.
First things first, let's get clear on who's who in the zoo. An audit is not a solo performance. It's really a team sport with 3 very distinct roles. And just understanding these is the absolute first step to a much smoother process.
So, of course, you have the auditor. This is your independent expert. Think of them as the impartial referee. Their job is to conduct a totally objective evaluation, whether it's of your financial statements, a department's internal processes, whatever it is, and then deliver a professional opinion.
Then you have the auditee. This is the one under the microscope, so to speak. It's the company, the department, or the program that's being examined. And their main job, really, is to cooperate, to provide the access and information needed for that evaluation. And finally, there's the audit client. This is the person or group that actually requested the audit. Now, a lot of the time, the client and the auditee are one and the same, but not always. For example, a big parent company might be the client, and they're asking for an audit of one of their smaller subsidiaries. That distinction can be pretty important. But, regardless of who's playing which part, the success of the entire thing really hinges on partnership. When the auditor, the auditee, and the client can all communicate openly and just cooperate, the whole dynamic shifts. It stops feeling like an investigation and starts feeling like a collaborative review to make things genuinely better. Now, this whole idea of collaboration is really built on a foundation of trust. And that trust comes from knowing that an auditor's work isn't just based on their whims or opinions. Nope, it's governed by a very strict professional code of ethics. This code is the absolute bedrock of their credibility. And that ethical foundation, it's really built on 2 core pillars: accountability and transparency. Every single action an auditor takes has to be guided by these high standards. It's what ensures their work is credible and totally impartial. This foundation rests on 6 core principles. Auditors have to serve the public interests, act with integrity, and, this is a huge one, remain independent and objective. This means their conclusions can't be influenced by the company they're looking at. These, along with competence, confidentiality, and professional behavior, well, they're not just suggestions. They are non-negotiable rules of the road. So we know the players and we know their principles. Now let's map out the journey itself. A good audit isn't some chaotic surprise attack. It's actually a predictable, structured process with 5 very distinct phases. It all gets started with preparation and planning, which happens long before the auditor even shows up. Then a formal opening meeting kicks everything off. That's followed by the real core of the audit, the fieldwork and evidence collection. Once all the info is gathered, a closing meeting is held to go over the findings, and the whole thing wraps up with a formal report and any necessary follow-up actions. And those opening and closing meetings are the 2 critical bookends of the whole process. The opening meeting is really about logistics and expectations, confirming the scope, answering questions. The closing meeting, on the other hand, that's all about the results. It's where they present the findings, and it's so important that they start with the strengths first, and then agree on timelines for any corrective actions.
So, we've got the players, the rules, and the process. The final piece of the puzzle is knowing what not to do. So let's cover the common traps that can turn a perfectly smooth audit into a really frustrating ordeal for everyone.
And what's funny is, when you look at these common mistakes, they kind of mirror each other. An auditee might be using outdated documents or not following up on past issues. And on the flip side, auditors can't stand the lack of preparation or seeing staff just ignore internal controls. See? They're really just two sides of the same coin. A little proactive preparation solves problems for everybody.
But let's really zero in on two of the absolute biggest red flags that will catch any auditor's attention. The first one is a lack of commitment from leadership. I mean, think about it. If top management doesn't take the audit process seriously, why would anyone else? When leaders don't engage with the findings, it just signals that the whole system is for show, and that completely undermines the purpose of the audit.
The second major red flag is a fundamental breakdown in internal controls that auditors are literally trained to spot right away.
And that is a lack of segregation of duties. If one person handles everything from receiving payments to paying the bills, that dramatically increases the perceived risk of fraud. And look, even if everything is perfectly honest, it forces the auditor to do so much more testing, which just wastes time and money for everyone involved.
And this really brings us right back to that powerful idea from Richard Chambers. An audit isn't about punishment, it's about protection and growth. It's an opportunity to get a checkup, a chance to find those little weaknesses and identify risks before they blow up into disasters.
And that's really the key takeaway from all of this. Forget the idea of a confrontational battle. A painless, productive audit is at its heart a partnership. It requires open communication, solid preparation, and a shared goal of simply making the organization stronger.
So I'll leave you with this question to think about. The next time an audit appears on your calendar, are you going to see it as just another obstacle to get through, or as a genuine opportunity to improve and grow stronger? The choice, and ultimately the outcome, is really up to you.